Welcome to this week's Music Career Study Group. My name is Kevin, and joining me is Chris. Chris, how
I
you
thought
doing?
you were gonna swap our positions. I'm glad you did.
See, then I'll just start looking in your dreamy eyes and get lost
Oh
in
yeah.
them, and that way I can see you out of the corner of my eye. No, he's there. But yes, this week it is a special Valentine's Day themed music career study group where we're going to be talking about 10 things to love about a music career. But it is also your time to ask questions. If you've got questions about music distribution, music marketing, or if whatever strategy, you just need some advice, usually keeping it around music. Chris and I are not trained therapists.
We're not counselors or lawyers.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, while people are getting settled in, let us know where you're watching from. Say hi in the comments. And we get artists from all over the world watching. And since we keep getting new people each week, I thought, it'd be good for Chris and I to give a little quick background about who we are. If you're like, who are these guys? I could say for both of us, we both collectively, Chris, I think we figured up it's moving on collectively
more than 40 years.
40 years in independent music distribution and marketing and independent artists and artists ourselves. So my career band that I've been in for ages is called Small Town Poets, but I'm a part of a bunch of other projects as well that you can find on Spotify. Small Town Poets is one of them. Hello Morning is another. Very proud of those records. Those have gotten placed in film and TV a lot. And then my current musical alter ego, Red Machine, if you want to check that out. Still writing and recording. Been writing and recording, Chris, almost like 2+ hours a day since the new year.
So you're living my dream.
Chris, give us a little of your background and then we'll dive in a little bit more.
Yeah, so you mentioned the professional side of music marketing, distribution, monetization, publishing, all that stuff that you and I have worked in for quite a long time. In my own music making, I'm a singer-songwriter. I make music under my own name, Chris Robley, and I have put out 8 or 9 albums throughout that time of my own original music. I also occasionally like to go to the local bar and do like 4 hours of cover songs in the corner.
Nothing wrong with that. That's awesome.
No, it's fun. So I do the, my own stuff as well as the cover band thing, and then published poet as well. So, yeah.
Yes, he's a poet. That means he's better than us.
Yes, I have a little beret that I put on to prove
that. Yeah. Do you have your jacket, brown jacket with the patches on the elbows?
I don't need that. I have a blue corduroy one.
All right.
I also have a cold, so I'll apologize for my stuffiness up front.
Yeah. Yes. But he's here. He's alive, and he'll be fine. And we'll get through this together. I think we've got some slides, Chris, with a couple. So we're going to be talking about 10 things to love about a music career. I hope this episode you find some encouragement and some just excitement about making music. And I meant to say, Chris, when you were doing your intro, people should watch the episode we did 2 weeks ago. That was, what did we call it?
Redefining success in music marketing.
Something like that one. Because we detailed something Chris is actively doing right now, and he's doing his lunchtime songs live every Thursday right before this. So you can, watch that, take a little lunch break afterwards, and then join us for the Music Career Study Group. And again, this is your chance to ask questions along the way. And even if it's off topic, we'll be happy to dive in. So feel free to leave them in the chat. And let's get a couple housekeeping things out of the way, Chris, to make.
All right.
First up, we get asked this all the time about Reverb Nation. Like, you guys do distribution? I didn't realize it. Yes, you can distribute your songs for as little as $1 per song. There's other options as well. If you are a premium member who takes advantage of all the marketing tools that Reverb Nation has to offer, you will get unlimited music distribution. That's something new that we just changed. That was just at the end of
last year, I think.
Yeah, I think so. It was like mid-year sometime. I don't know. It's relatively new. So a lot of people still don't realize, oh, I'm a premium member. I didn't realize I get unlimited music distribution. It's a great deal. Check it out. And then if you have been paying attention to the music business news, we just launched what we call Reverb Nation Levels. And as it says on the screen, financial backing, career support, and personalized service for independent artists. It is a services you have to apply for. So if you think this is for you, head over to levels.reverbnation.com. There's an application form, fill it out. There's no fee. There's no extra cost or anything. It's just a different tier of service. And so if you're interested in that, check that out, because some cool things are going to be happening with that.
And that can include any number of kinds of support, financial backing, as it says, which is an advance, help acquiring the gear you need to make great music, promo support, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, marketing costs. It's not just related to releases, and it's not like our goal is to not have a program like a lot of them where they just act more like a bank. We're really trying to support the independent music community and what they need and help them thrive and help them pour a little more fuel on the fire that they might already have going in their career. So definitely check that out.
And then, we're here every Thursday around this time. And next week we'll be at Folk Alliance, which is an amazing musician conference that's happening in Montreal, Quebec this year. So as long as the Wi-Fi at the conference center is functional, we should be live next week.
We've done some investigating. We've asked questions. And what we've gotten back is like sort of I don't know, maybe that might work, might not. We don't know. So we will find out in real time, but we'll be there Wednesday. So we should know on Wednesday whether or not we can pull it off. We might have to just huddle around a phone and make it happen. But we definitely wanted to bring something different and unique to, since we're going to be at Folk Alliance and there'll be a lot of artists there with us. And it's just an exciting event.
Yeah, I think we're about to dive into the topic, but there were a couple questions. Do we want to hit them before or?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're here because they left them early before our show went live. David Stackhouse asked a question. If they need some help moving something over from TuneCore. It's been a week since you asked. David, that's a good chance that if you're still watching, Chris and I could help you with this because we've worked in distribution forever. We haven't worked in support at Reverb Nation, but we might be able to answer your question. In general, if you want to move music from one distribution company to another, what you need to do is get it signed up at the new place. But before you hit distribute, go hit remove from the old distributor, and then go back to Reverb Nation and hit distribute, and the music should come down around the same time it's going back up. So it minimizes the amount of time it's down. And so if that was your question or related to that, give us a little bit more details and we might be able to help. But that in general is what you need to do when you remove music. And you can use the same barcode from one distributor to the other. So, or we'll just give you a new one either way.
And then Deep River, we haven't gotten to Blue Sky yet. It's pretty new. I mean, I know Blue Sky isn't brand new, but the craze and the mass migration over to Blue Sky is pretty new. So,
yeah, we'll see if it lasts.
Hi to Puerto Rico, by the way.
Yes, excellent. All right, Chris, we are talking about 10 things to love about a music career. And again, you are watching the Music Career Study Group. And if you're just joining us, weigh in on the comments. Let us know where you're watching from. If you've got a question about what we're talking about or anything related to your music career, feel free to weigh in the comments and we'll try to get it on the show.
Yeah. So one thing I was going to say about this topic is that in the past, you and I around the Valentine's theme have talked about, like classic band breakup stories or like 10 things I absolutely hate about making music. And it's fun to gossip and be negative, but there's enough strife in the world right now. We thought, let's be encouraging and motivational and let's be appreciative of 10 things that most musicians already experience in their life, whether they have achieved the levels of success that they dream of or not. I think the 10 things we'll discuss today are the things that most of us have probably already come to know and realize about our own lives in music making. So we'll talk about those just to, make everyone feel good. But also with each of these points, we do have a kind of a goal to set for you so that in any areas of this, you can grow and just move your music forward. So that's sort of the starting point.
Yeah.
Oh, hello to Denmark. Whoa. I don't think I can read that online, but
Yeah. Yeah, there is, I think, that comment. One of the things to love about a music career that may not be on our list is that things are always changing, and there's a big movement that we should probably address on this live stream in a future episode about people moving away from streaming platforms and promoting their music on streaming platforms, or where places where artists get very little money. It's been talked about for ages, but I think there's like more strategies being put into play where streaming is secondary. But
yeah, and in fact, in 2 weeks ago when we talked about marketing, we mentioned that one of the biggest releases of last year didn't even go on Spotify for like its first 2 or 3 months of its existence.
yeah, I think we're going to see more of that. But anyway, let's dive in.
Yeah, all right. So the first thing I think we can all love, at least in hindsight, about a music career is that you are going to over and over again push up against your own limits in skill and frustration level, whatever it is. You're going to reach a point where you have to keep going, you push against your own limits, and all that means growth. So you are pursuing mastery over an instrument or over your voice or over songwriting or music production or music marketing. There's lots of skills we need. And when you pursue something to that level, it's going to be a transferable skill. You can bring it to your job, you can bring it to your family, whatever it is, because you're going to realize that frustration and failure is completely baked into this endeavor. And if you've kept going, then your tolerance level for risk and failure is going to be higher than a lot of people's. And that's an amazing thing.
Chris, there was a much talked about comment from an AI music company's CEO
Oh God, yes.
who said, making music is too hard. No one likes making music. I'm like, BS. One of the things that is the most amazing thing about making music
is that it's hard.
It's that it's hard. And people like doing hard things when they feel like they accomplish something. For example, every time I release a track, I don't care if anyone listens to it or not. I feel like I accomplished something huge, both in skill and ability each time, trying to do new things, trying to push myself in different directions, and just getting something to the finish line, a creative project like that, is such a big accomplishment that gets overlooked, that not only excites you, but it just inspires you and gets you motivated and excited to keep making more music.
Yeah, and I can think one of the most beautiful things about continually pressing against your own limitations is that you have to have this sort of honest self-assessment. And as you try to build skills, you're going to reveal all these places about yourself where you have deficiencies. And then you can, if you're being honest with yourself, you can develop a plan to compensate for those deficiencies. It could be to keep working on it so you increase that skill, or you say, to hell with it. This isn't a thing that I can ever excel at, so I'm going to collaborate. And so I think my encouragement is, if you have a goal for 2025 in this area, it would be to identify one of your biggest weaknesses, whether it's, I can write great hooks, but I can't write great lyrics, or, my music's great, I just don't know what I'm doing with digital advertising. And then do one of two things. Either commit to learning and education so you can get better by the end of the year, or just outsource it and collaborate with someone that you trust so you can marry your talents with someone else's talents for, that, what's the saying? Sum is greater than the parts, or whatever. Synergy.
The sum of the whole is greater than the individual parts.
There you go.
That thing.
So that's what I would encourage you all to do, is identify one of those areas of deficiencies and find the best way to compensate.
This has been a huge thing for me in 2025 already. I've always wanted to.
Thank you.
It can be a shady business. My career band I mentioned is Small Town Poets. I was the last official member to join. It's a 5-piece. All the other guys sing very competently, so there was really no need for me to sing. And I've always wanted to sing, and felt like over the years my voice got worse and worse. But I've started taking vocal lessons, and I've been singing daily, every day. And my voice has already improved so much. And I've been also upping my music production skills and just trying to do things to push both those things in uncomfortable places where if you follow my Red Machine account or me personally, I've posted some things where I sang, which I never would have done in a million years before going through this sort of goal of pushing myself to do these things. So I think as an artist, some of this stuff, we've spent so much time talking about marketing, but it's like, man, this is the joy that like that self-improvement, that I'm getting better, the musical breakthroughs that just get you so jacked and excited to make music.
Yeah, and then just one thing I'll say about this is you're talking about self-improvement. Another joy is relationship building, and we'll talk about that as another item on this list, but if you get someone else to help you in an area that you're weak in, you're building community right there. So for me, I feel pretty confident in writing and tracking. I do not feel confident in mixing. So suddenly I kind of outsource to someone who has that skill, and now we're working together on something. So I just was that a daughter or did a bat just fly around?
I think a bat just flew around.
You're like,
yes. Next up.
yeah. So okay, we all know music gives us this chance to express these things that are really pronounced inside us. It could be deep, dark, embarrassing things. It could be, you're amped up and super joyous. Either way, I think we all know that feeling of if you were to express those things like with a group of friends sitting at a table at a bar, people would be like, dude, tone it down. You're bumming us all out, or like you're embarrassing us. But music gives you this really healthy, socially acceptable outlet to put this expression. And I think that's an amazing thing, whether it's, the high highs, the low lows. Music can be the perfect place to put that expression. And in fact, the more pronounced those emotions are and the more crystallized you can make those feelings, I think a lot of times the more your music will resonate.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is, and it's also just, yeah, it's a good place to just let your feelings out. And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people letting their feelings out in negative ways these days. Put it into a song, it'll be personal therapy and you'll feel better.
Yeah, so what's the goal for this year? My encouragement, my challenge to you would be to risk something deeper in your songwriting or in your performances. So like it's a cliche or an old adage, if you're not risking anything, why the hell would I care? So if your songs feel safe, if your performances feel safe, put more into them and put more on the line, and I think you'll realize that they connect more easily.
Yes.
And actually, I'll say one more thing. My personal challenge is to try to write a happy song. Because holy crap, it is really hard to write like a song of gratitude or of a happy emotion without it sounding like syrupy, drippy cliche. That's my challenge.
I gave you the tracks I've been trying to collaborate with Chris since I've known him, and I gave him some tracks for our official pop hit song.
Oh, that's true. I could write lyrics for that, right? Couldn't I?
That's what I was intending, if that wasn't made clear.
All right. I thought you just wanted me to add some guitar and synth parts or something.
No, I want you to write some lyrics like what you
Okay.
did with Date Night.
All right.
This is for you to write your pop hook lyrics, and the beat's awesome. It's
catchy. All right.
Yeah.
We'll make a masterpiece.
Okay.
The next thing, the most boring thing, organizational skills. Wah, wah, wah. That's why we all started making music, right? So we could become better at organizing. But think about how important a skill this is in life, whether you have another job, your house project, whatever it is. Like, so much of making music is about scheduling. It's about collaboration. It's about clearly communicating your own ideas. It's about sort of project management as a form of triage, because you can't achieve everything you want all at once, so you have to prioritize and tackle things one step at a time. So I think this is something we should all take a moment to appreciate, as long as we have actually developed organizational skills.
Well, I know musicians aren't known for their organizational skills, but the fact that musicians can get an album across the finish line, that's something.
Yeah. I mean, it might be your own chaotic form of organizational skills, but that is a hell of achievement.
There's a lot that has to go into pulling all the pieces together to make these type of creative projects work and successful. And by successful, I mean just that you completed it and it's finished.
Yeah. Well, so my challenge for you this year, if you have a goal, is instead of saying something like, I want to make a music video or like a live performance video that'll work on Instagram Reels. That's a pretty big goal. Instead, what I would challenge you to do is break that into all its component parts and say, I want it to be done in 3 months. So what do I have to do first? Pick a song. Figure out what the arrangement's going to be. Who do I need to show up to perform this with me? Maybe that's the first week's goals. Then the next week 2 is like, how are we going to practice the arrangement? What's the setting of the video? Do we need props? Week 3 might be getting the props and actually practicing. Week 4 might be doing a test shoot to see if everyone is framed on your camera phone properly, and then watching it afterwards and being like, is this boring? Is it working? What do we need to change? And on and on. There's just so many component parts for that large project of make a video. So that's my challenge to you, is to break it into lots of little achievable tasks as if you were a project manager.
Well, I think that's where a lot of creative projects go bad. Anyways, we get very ambitious with our ideas that just seem way too big to execute. And we probably have endless supply of those ideas, but actually being able to take those ideas and break them down so they're actionable and, pull off all the organizational pieces, that's something.
Hello, Wisconsin.
With Christmas music in the house.
Hello, Lady Shay. Christmas music, yeah. If you're just tuning in, this is the Music Career Study Group, and today for Valentine's week, we're talking about 10 things to love about a music career.
All right, we're on to number 4.
In theory, you're less of a Luddite. If you make music today or for the past 30 or 40 years, maybe for the last 80 years, music is always at the cutting edge of technology and subject to disruption, trends changing very quickly. So I don't always love this in the moment, but in hindsight, I'm always happy that I'm sort of incentivized, or my survival in a way, my creative survival depends on me using new tools, exploring things, if for no other reason than to see whether I want to keep using them or not, so that I can make an informed choice instead of always being afraid of the future. Oh, what? Auto-tune's going to kill everything, or drum machines will kill, AI is going to kill everything. That generally proves not to be true. So I like this about my own music making.
Yeah. I mean, it's something where, if anything, you're in the mix. You kind of have a pulse of what's going on with technology to some degree. We know a lot of musicians who still barely know how to use the internet. But yes, it's one of those things where, it's just fun to dive in and mess with new toys and technology and how sounds change and evolve. And a lot of the cutting edge of music is there.
Yeah, so my challenge or goal for 2025 is to take a technological advancement that offends you or terrifies you, or at least is like, I don't know how I feel about this, and use it. Like, make a plan to use it in your music or your music marketing in the next 2 months, let's say. And then after that's all done, go back a couple months later and say, how did I feel about that experience? Because it may be that you've been putting off investigating AI assistance in your music production. And when you finally do it, you realize, oh, this did make so much stuff easier for me in a way that unlocks new creativity, or maybe I can be creative more often or whatever. So do something that you're, have been reluctant to do this far with technology. What's this one? What the heck is community? I think I was thinking about, just as we seem to get more isolated and lonely as a species, and we're always staring at our phones, music is one way where people still come together. It might be at band rehearsal, or when you're recording something, you're working with other people, or obviously performing in front of people. There's an audience there. It could be that your music unites people around an emotion or a cause. It's just a way to celebrate togetherness that feels kind of increasingly rare these days.
Yeah, I think that with music, there's multiple opportunities here. I mean, in fact, this is what we want with this weekly live stream. We're not, Chris, I could talk to you anytime I want. I don't need to have a live stream in order for you and I to hang out, but we want this to be a place where all the music community can come together, ask each other's questions. It's a safe place. You don't have to feel stupid if you're just starting out and have some simple questions, or if you've got complex strategy questions as well. We welcome all that. We just want this to be a place where musicians can feel like, hey, there's other people who are experiencing similar things as me, and this is a great place to hang out. And plus, you got your fan community, you got the community of other artists that you may be collaborating or that are in your scene. There's a lot of places where I think music connects you to people where a lot of other people that are in boring other jobs don't experience that.
Yeah. Well, the goal I think everyone should have this year around this is to explore the ways in which community is an essential part of their music making. And that could be fan appreciation. It could be to celebrate the contributions of people in your band or that you've collaborated with. Because I think sometimes taking the attention off of ourselves a lot of times frees us up to make more engaging content. You know, it's easier to brag about your friend than it is to brag about yourself. So think about ways community plays a part in your music and talk about that.
Yes.
What's next? Oh, direct communication. So I don't assume that we all walk into this music making endeavor as great communicators, but we should leave as better communicators because so much has to be clarified. You have to talk about what you want creatively. You have to work. You have to delegate. You have to accept various kinds of accountability, whether you're working with a band or a label or whatever. And so communication is key. The crappier and more passive aggressive and more dysfunctional your communication gets, generally the more your career suffers. And the better and more clear and more respectful, empathetic communicator you can be, the happier time you'll have, the happier everyone around you will be to work with you, which leads to better results.
Yeah, if you have been on tour for any amount of time, you will quickly learn to improve your communication skills because you're dealing with usually a challenging sound person night after night. You're dealing with all sorts of situations, promoters or club venue owners that probably didn't read the contract they signed, that didn't. So you got to learn those skills of like that direct. I wouldn't say it's even confrontation. It's just being clear and direct and not beating around the bush. So, you see that all the time in marketing, because we talk about this a lot of times when we're talking to artists about their marketing. Usually the big issue is direct communication is one of them. They're not being clear what they want their fans to do. They're just kind of saying a lot of stuff. And it's like, oh, you wanted us to go here and do that? Why didn't you just say that? We would have done it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because there's always this sort of like positionality to who has the authority in communication. But I think, so I have been a producer. I've been in charge of my own recordings. When it's me making my music, it's like ultimately I've got the veto power, right? That makes sense. But when I'm a session player, if I'm sitting in a studio playing guitar or keyboards or whatever, I love when the artist or the producer is super direct and is like, I like that part, don't do that thing again. Like, yeah. I don't take it as threatening. I'm like, thank you for making my job easier. I don't have to guess what you like now. Like, and they're not being mean. They're the one who has the authority to make those decisions, and they're just simply being direct with me. So I think sometimes we also get like, oh, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. I don't want to hurt their feelings. Ultimately you want to work with adults who can hear your truth and not be threatened by it. So the goal I would challenge everyone to have is that if there's a difficult conversation you've been putting off because it's, uncomfortable or terrifying, plan that, schedule it with the person, maybe make an outline, rehearse it in your head a few times, bring the outline and have that difficult conversation.
Yeah, great records don't get made by everybody avoiding those types of conversations. And it's tough,
unless it's Exile on Main Street. I don't think they ever saw each other during that, right?
Early in my career, this was a challenge because it was like being direct and also taking direct feedback, especially in like the recording studio where creative decisions are being made, and you're like, you don't like hearing that nobody likes the part you just played. But as I've gotten older, making records is totally different. Like, I love the collaborative process, and you can just get so, I don't know, like tunnel vision in the creative process that you feel like, I'm not digging this, but I don't have any ideas beyond it. But then someone else comes and says, hey, that's not good. Let's go this way. You're like, thank you for freeing me from that.
Yeah. Well, and so we don't sound like we're just, I don't know, what's the easy to say, not easy, preaching at people. I was terrible at this in my 20s. I was better at it in my 30s. And now I'm in my 40s. I hope I'm better than my 30s. But this wasn't an easy lesson for me. It's one of those life skills you'll build over time.
Well, I think for me, where it really, the big growth moment was that band I was in here in Portland called Hello Morning. Um, I was basically in the producer role for that, managing a band with some, our band had some challenging dynamics in it. And then, you're on the clock, you're paying money, and you got an engineer sitting here that's like, "Oh, tell me what to do." And you're like, Screw feelings, we're on the clock, we're paying. Oh, this is money coming out of my pocket for every time we don't talk about the hard things. And then, the final product not being what we want. So it's like, you just got to put the big person pants on and make it happen.
Well, the next thing is if you truly have a career, which I think for this discussion we're defining as a solid ongoing attempt to make more and more of your music and to build an audience. It doesn't necessarily mean your full-time living comes from music, but if you're taking your music seriously, that's what I think of as a career.
You're pursuing it at a professional level, because you can be a professional musician and not be your full-time income.
Yeah, and if that's true for you, then one thing you can celebrate is you are not an aimless dreamer. So if you are an aimless dreamer, there's nothing really wrong with that as long as you admit to yourself, I'm a hobbyist. I do this when I want. I don't do a whole lot of things I don't want to do. That's fine. Like all
You
kinds
said
of
the H word.
Oh, hobbyist. Sorry, it might have to bleep that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of dreamers out there, and that's fine. But I think if you want your music to go places, then you are probably the type of person who breaks these big, vague goals into achievable steps. You take those steps one at a time. Not to suggest every step is easy or actually a forward step. There are setbacks, but you're continually doing things you can measure. And actually, that reminds me of SMART goals that you talked about a couple weeks ago. What does that stand for again?
A specific. What is M?
Measurable.
Measurable, relevant, actionable, and time bound.
There you go. And actually, that's my challenge for you. Set a goal for 2025 of stop dreaming, get off the couch, turn one of your dreams into SMART goals, and then go achieve it one step at a time.
Yeah. I have a working theory, and, we're amongst friends, that I feel like we do this live stream every week. It's free marketing information. When I was getting into music, this kind of thing did not exist. I would have been absorbing all the information I possibly could from any source I could find. And I was like, why aren't the live streams? They're free. Why don't we have thousands of artists? There's millions of people releasing music every year. And I have a theory that most artists, they want to be the dreamer, because when we start talking about strategy, that starts to sound like work. And music is a diversion for a lot of folks, and they can release it and see what happens. But anyway, those are some of my thoughts. I could go on and on about it, but I'm not going to.
No, I completely concur. But the people watching today can celebrate the fact that they're not.
Yes.
So this one I think doesn't get celebrated enough, is that your music, it can change the world one person at a time. There's that saying, music can't change the world, but can it change a person? We don't always hear from these people. We don't always know the impact. But Kevin, I know in the past couple of weeks, you've talked about kind of a deep experience in that regard. Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I probably, I won't recount the whole story because it's a couple episodes ago. You can check it out. But yeah, just hearing from fans where they made a point of telling us how deeply impacted they were by a song and how it got them through one of the hardest times of their life. And it was, this time period that this, they were telling us this story years after this had happened. And just one of those things that, as an artist, we log into things like artists for Spotify.com or Spotify for artists, or our Spotify count, or other things. And we see these numbers, and we're always looking at them like, oh, we want numbers to go up and stuff. But we oftentimes forget that those are real people listening to our music that could be having the time of their life. They could be going through something really hard. They could be just, listening to it as background music. There's just a lot of stories in there that we're not hearing about. And sometimes we're just so fixated on the ultimate number and not what true impact that our music could be happening in the lives of real people.
Yeah, so Stefan, I think that's a pretty solid hypothesis about dreams versus work. Um, on the topic of your music changing the world or changing a person, my challenge to you, or if you set a goal for this year, is to actually ask your audience what your music means to them. And I know it's kind of a bold question. It probably feels like you're putting yourself out there. 90% of your audience probably won't even respond. But whoever does, you're likely to hear some things that will surprise you about the power of your own music. So whenever I've done this, I'm always a little bit shy to do it, and then always thankful I do. I get emails back with some, amazing compliments and some deep stories about what my music has meant to people. So don't be afraid to ask your audience.
We got a couple comments on Malia said the sad truth is once you start to monetize something you love doing, it becomes work. May get turned off by this, but that is an inevitable part of the process. Absolutely. I my whole career it spanned many decades, and I could say that one thing that has been consistent, even though technology and how people distribute music has changed, one thing that's been consistent is that when I've seen a large group of talented people, when they hit that reality that this is going to not just be fun, it's going to be a work component and feel like a job after all, they lose interest because it changes their relationship to music.
This is a good thing to back that up. Yeah. I'm reading the book called The Dip. Guys, the thing that makes music business hard makes the success rare. Nobody likes crunching numbers and cold calling, but that's the thing that makes you grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I forget who wrote that book. I think I've read another book by that author, but not that particular book.
And then Barry James, I'm going to lead this to a plug for BandLab. You say a dream can change the world. If you're hearing it in your head, get a DAW and try to get down what is heard. Yeah. And, we all probably have our preferred DAWs for our desktop home studios. If you're on the go, you should have the BandLab app on your phone or your iPad or whatever. It's an incredible recording and production tool. And if you don't know, we work for BandLab Technologies. Thus the plug.
Yeah. BandLab is Technologies owns BandLab and Reverb Nation. It was Seth Godin, and I interviewed Seth Godin years ago on a podcast that Chris and I used to do.
Oh yeah,
I was very sick that day. It was really awful, but I'm like, I'm not gonna cancel on Seth Godin.
Let's see. The next benefit, health benefit. So as long as you're not playing a Les Paul guitar, that gives you shoulder damage.
Problem.
Then there are a ton of health benefits to playing music. These are all scientifically backed. They're not just, my own anecdotes. Improving your mood, reduces stress. You sleep better, improved memory and concentration and focus. Pain management, again, as long as you don't play a Les Paul. Improved cognitive performance, so you can slow down aging. Improved coordination, especially if you're a drummer or like a piano player who has like super crazy independence drills going on your fingers. And improved social connections because of the community stuff we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, it's just good brain exercise, like writing, recording music, pursuing music, playing live. It just uses parts of your brain that need to be exercised. And yeah, I agree with all that.
Yeah, so my challenge for 2025 is to do more of the good stuff in music while limiting the vices that sometimes come with it. It's like, it's easy to play a gig and have a few beers, and then the next night you play a gig and have a few more beers, and like, suddenly a week's gone by, you've had drinks every night, and it's like, I feel like ass. What's good? So, limit the vices that can come with music, do more of the good stuff. Try to limit the negative self-talk that we can always have about our own art. So we're our own worst critics. So however we can reduce that, and attempt something musically that makes your brain really struggle at first. So again, it could be, learning to play the drums if you're a guitarist, or if you're a piano player, learn to play the bass and sing at the same time, or whatever, anything that makes your brain have to do that thing where you split up split parts of your brain into independence drills. Do that. It'll be great. That's also one of my favorite things about music is when you're struggling and struggling, struggling, and then you're like, I got it. And then as soon as you say I got it, it goes away again.
Oh,
But
I do that in the shower all the time. Oh, that's the melody or that's the line. And then by the time I'm out, I'm like, I don't even remember. I don't know what it was. Oh, did you?
Oh,
Have
you
more
go
to say?
ahead.
'Cause I have some stuff
No.
on this. One, you mentioned actually like physical health benefits. That's one of the things. Like going into the new year, I drastically cut off alcohol and have been eating extremely healthy and clean, feeling great. And what it has done is like I have focus issues, but it's really helped like me just like I said, I've been writing and recording multiple hours every day since the new year. And it's like my brain has just been in a healthier, creative space. And I've really noticed the impact of how I take care of myself and how much time and energy and excitement level I have for making music. And it's like, making music's what I said I want to do, not sit there, be a couch potato. So I've made some big changes in order to keep it going. But also the other thing with health benefits related to what you're mentioning on like the mental health, I've just come to this realization. It's like a music career is 100% rejection or like 99% rejection.
Hopefully not 100.
That's the baseline. So we got to get over ourselves acting like being worried to put something out there. Nobody's paying attention most of the time. So when you post something on social, like I mentioned, I've been doing a lot of singing where I never would have put anything out there with my voice on it ever. And I'm like, no one's even paying attention. It'll be funny to see if anyone even notices. That's the real thing. And so just get over my insecurities, and because half the time the stuff that hits and connects is the thing that you didn't think would in the first place.
Yeah.
So that to me, it's just like, just get in the mode of like, it doesn't matter if people don't like it. And also the other thing why I've been thinking a lot about that is that in the old days, you'd have songs on the radio that would be played to death. And half the time, the first few times you heard it, you didn't even like it. And then it's kind of like, okay, that kind of getting what they're going for here. Even if it's a band you like their new record, you're like, that's different. I don't know what. And then finally it becomes one of your favorite tracks of that year. And you're like, it's because people need that repetition. And so much in the world where we release music now, we're expecting people to have this amazing positive response off of just hearing something once. And that never happens. It's very rare.
Yeah.
And so we shouldn't be acting like when we put something out and get a mediocre response that it's terrible or some sort of indictment on our music career, because that's just not how people connect with art. They don't just hear it once and just suddenly you're their favorite artist.
I'm forgetting who it was. If it was John Mayer, it was some, famous musician that had an Instagram reel. They were being interviewed and they said something like, I put everything out because how do I know if it's any good?
Yeah.
I'm like, you're the person who made it, but cool. That seems like such a healthy attitude of just, I made it. It might not even be for me. It came through me. The world can judge it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm like, I've got to the point where like, I'm not going to feel insecure or embarrassed. I'm sure I'll embarrass myself. There's plenty of that on the horizon. But at the same time, if I let that stop me from forward progress, and I think a lot of musicians do that, then you're missing out on some of the joys of that connection, that growth, and maybe some songs that really connect that you thought were just mediocre.
Lady Shay's comment here is a perfect segue to the next and last of our 10 points. Doing what the other 99% won't do is what makes the difference. So I think that is in relation to work versus, sitting on the couch and dreaming. But it also leads to this. We, as musicians, live an adventure that most people in the world don't understand. Like, our lives look like bohemian, unorthodox, odysseys into the unknown as they work at a cubicle or whatever. I used to work at a bank. I can tell you, being a musician, playing gigs, recording albums, even working in other aspects of the music industry, it's a whole lot better than working at a bank. And that means we have the best
Maybe
stories.
Less money, though.
A little less money, that's true. But we have the best stories at parties, right?
Mm-hmm.
So being normal, it's overrated. And I think we should celebrate the fact that we're not normal.
When I stopped touring full time, I had a moment of freak out. Like, everyone in this world is insane. How do they get up and do the exact same thing every day, go to the exact same location? There's nothing interesting. There's no adventure. There's nothing happening out of the ordinary. That sounds terrifying.
Although then in a strange way, touring becomes that too, even though the thing that's the same is that it's always different, but somehow
It's always
also the
chaos
same.
is what it is. It's always broken down by the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And I say our lives are an adventure, and I truly mean that no matter where you're at in your, stature or success levels. Like the new band who's rehearsing in the garage or the basement and about to play their first gig, that's an adventure. That is so cool. Like, again, most people don't do that in their life, so celebrate that.
yeah.
I think I had a specific. Oh, here's the specific goal for the year: gather up all your best stories from your life in music, whether they're tour stories or recording or whatever it is, and then go tell them. You can tell them on social, tell them by email, tell them at parties. Make an active practice of gathering up those stories and then conveying them.
Yeah, if they make great social media content, and that's one of the things that I think is important with this exercise. It's just thinking about all the interesting things that have happened, all the successes, all those as you reflect on your pursuit of music. Everybody's gonna have stories that draw interest to your music, you as a person, or they're just funny and entertaining because the average person doesn't understand what it's like to do any of this.
Yeah. Barry's comment reminds me, is it Abe Lincoln who said you can't please all the people all the time? Your music's not going to appeal to everyone, so you will find your true fans amongst the masses.
Yeah, and that's
going on. I put it out.
And going along with that, that's partly why that thing of I'm like, most of music is going to be rejection, because you take the biggest artist on the planet right now, whether it's Coldplay or that other artist that we've mentioned too much on this live stream that I'm not going to say. We had a counter going last time. There's still an enormous amount of people that dislike their music, and you're like, wow, the biggest artist in the world, still most of the planet doesn't listen to them.
Yeah.
Most of the planet probably doesn't like them on a percentage basis. And so when you keep that in mind, you're like, wow, you got to just look at it differently.
Sibiriak, I like all the music I make. What I don't like, I don't make. People think I'm a narcissist because I like listening to my music. Hey, Prince listened to his own, although Prince might have been a narcissist. Who knows?
Well, that's the funny thing. It's like there's always this weird thing of like, oh, there's an artist likes listening to music. I'm like, we made it because we liked the sounds and putting it together. It wasn't like we made it because we hated it. I mean, when I was programming drum beats last night, I'm like, this is freaking awesome. And I like listening to it over and over again because I like hearing it.
Yeah. Good storytelling will also improve the communication goals. Exactly.
Absolutely.
I think that was the last of our
we've got
slides.
time here. If anyone has questions about music marketing strategy, anything we've talked about, a reminder that Reverb Nation levels, if you want to check that out, levels.reverbnation.com. And that's the big new thing that, we've got those slides back at the front. Yeah. It's something new we've launched as a new component. It's going to be exciting. So you can head over there. There's an application form. It's not scary. We're not asking for deep personal information, but it is an invite-only program. But we're trying to help be that next level of support for artists. And then if you want to distribute music, Reverb Nation's got you covered as well. But yes. Oh, yeah. Barry had a good point. Re-listening to your music can expose you to how well you've progressed. That's something I love about going and listening to the catalog, especially for the band Small Town Poets, because that was my initial band and we've been making records the whole time. And just to hear I've progressed as a guitar player, as a songwriter, collaborator. We've done a lot of the music production ourselves, and just hearing then some of those choices, like some of those, like there's where we should have had a hard conversation that we went down. This song never would have fallen flat like this if we had that conversation that we knew we needed to have.
I honestly don't love listening to my own music, but when I do, like the rare times I do, I have this weird experience where I can see how I've grown in a lot of ways, or changed, evolved, and then there's also this sort of appreciation I have of like, how did I write that? Who was the person that came up with that really cool chord change? It wasn't me. I mean, it was me 20 years ago or whatever, but like, so that just like, I think the appreciation can flow in both directions.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I'm like, wow, we did that. That's a really cool thing I did, or we did as a band, or part I played, or a cool sound. I'm like, I don't remember dialing that in, and that, man.
Yeah, and you probably have this appreciation later because when the music is new and when you've been fretting over it, you're so sick of it or you're so insecure about it that you can't hear it for what it is until some time has passed.
Correct.
In fact, there's this story. You know Burgerville?
Yes.
Burgerville is a burger chain in the Pacific Northwest where, at least when I lived out there, they were doing a pretty good job of getting all their music from local artists. Do they still do that?
I'm not sure if they still do, but it wouldn't surprise me if they do. I know they had a big local music initiative that was going for many years.
Well, I walked in one day to get a burger, and I was like, "Oh, what is this? This is a cool. Oh, it's me." It was like the one time I was, pleasantly shocked by my own music.
This guy's awesome. That's
really cool.
Not this guy getting more play? Yes. Barry says success is always marked with many failures. Yes. Yeah. Any other questions? Any comments? Anyone have a release coming up or a marketing question? We've got some time. We could call it early if we need to.
We could workshop someone's planned release strategy or their branding.
Apparently my water is off. We're having a snowstorm right now, and
we are too.
So I might need to keep this bottle for other reasons if the water's not working. But anyway, Chris has his moonshine.
So it's snowing in the Northwest and in the Northeast at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Apparently it was just routine, just coincidental. Lady Shay Music says some of the best music I ever heard was found on college radio. Yeah, I you know what? It's interesting. Like, I think the promise of streaming was like unending discovery, and I think it's harder now than ever to discover new music. There's a good podcast if you guys are interested in. It's sometimes they talk about the music business. Sometimes they analyze music. It's called Switched on Pop. One of the hosts is a music journalist, and one of the hosts is a songwriter. So they might tackle some industry things, but not it's not all industry. A lot of it's like talking about what makes music great by certain artists that are new, and it's a good show. Anyway, they did one about Spotify, and I guess this person, the guest on the show, wrote a book about it. And they were referring to peak Spotify, like peak playlist being 2016 to 2019. And I would concur with that. Like it feels like those things just don't do what they used to do. And also Spotify, they call it functional music, stuff that like some of the biggest playlists are like study music, focus music, and how a lot of those playlists have been flooded with fake artists and so, yeah, it's very interesting. It's a good podcast. I recommend it. Switched on Pop. Check it out.
Stefan will see us at Folk Alliance on release week. That's cool. Good luck with your release. A week from now.
Malia said that episode with Liz Pelly was the person. I guess she wrote a book about Spotify. It made me angry. Just be prepared. That episode will make you angry.
Let's see. What are we listening to and reading? I am reading the best. Those Best American collections. The 2024 Best American Essays collection is what I'm reading now.
We talking books.
Books. Listening to.
Chris. I've been reading that myself too. Of course.
Yeah, I know Kevin's a big reader. You read through podcasts.
That's right. I like listening. I'm a good auditory learner. So I absorb podcasts and I'll listen to audiobooks and stuff.
For music listening, I'm still, I don't know, what is this, 5 months into my obsession with The Smile, which is two of the guys from Radiohead. Their new trio, they've been around for a few years, but they've made 3 full albums in that time. It's incredible.
My listening has been all over the place. I was listening to industrial metal yesterday. I was listening. I I love whoops, I didn't mean to hit that one again. Yeah, I was listening to Rob Zombie at the gym yesterday and then the Matrix soundtrack. But then I've also been listening to a lot of artists that do instrumental stuff, like an artist named Tycho, an artist named Tobacco, which if you're familiar with Silicon Valley, the TV show that was on HBO Max, he did most of the music in that. I've been all over the place. I've been listening to rock. I was listening to Aerosmith the other day, and this was crazy. Aerosmith, listening to him, it's like, you're like, is this song almost over? And it's only halfway through because every song's like 4.5 minutes long. And nowadays,
Epic.
Every song is like 2 minutes tops, 2 minutes 30. And you're like, this song's long. and my daughters were in the car and I had it on and they're like, this song isn't even half over. And it's like the second guitar solo. We haven't even gotten to the second bridge, the fourth chorus with a variation on the end, you know.
So, Siberiac, are there any new functions and features of Reverb Nation? We talked about Levels, which is just launched. That's a massive new service.
There are some new pieces. We do have a new distribution flow we're working on to simplify. It's already a simple process. Chris and I worked for a distributor that had probably one of the hardest music distribution sign-up flows. Reverb Nations is already extremely easy, but we're even doing some more to improve that. And some other things coming up. There's a lot of work to do. So yeah, stay tuned.
I'll say, Malia, I liked it a lot. I had 2 thoughts of appreciation about the halftime show at the Super Bowl. One was, I know SZA was there, but it really felt like one artist the whole time, with a little bit of help. But
that's true.
I appreciated that he kept the energy going. He kept the focus on himself, it not in a narcissistic way, in like a impressive, confident, entertaining way. And it just was so nice when I think we've gotten used to just like guest artists and medleys. And well, he did a medley, but you know what I mean? Like smorgasbord of short attention span. Oh, new artist. I was like, oh, this felt like a single person's vision, which I really liked. And then what was, yeah, and it felt somehow, I know there were no guitars, but it felt like somehow it struck me as a performance from the days when there was a lot of bands.
Huh.
And maybe that's because it was just like one person's vision, but it kind of just had this uniformity that I really appreciated.
The halftime show, I don't know why. Every year, this has gone on for years. It has unrelated to the last couple halftime shows, but every year
it's when you have to go to the bathroom.
No, I'll watch social media while it's going on, and everybody decides that I don't know why the halftime show, it either is the best thing I've ever seen or it's the worst thing I've ever seen. I'm like, why do we have to have strong opinions about a halftime show? Like, can I just watch it and go, that was entertainment and I've moved on with my life? Like people saying, if you didn't love that halftime show, there's something wrong with you. I'm like, there's something wrong with you for saying that. I don't.
I did.
Why do I have to have a strong opinion about a halftime performance?
Despite me enjoying it, I also concur with you because the next day I'm like, why is everyone fighting? Just because someone didn't like it doesn't mean anything, but they just didn't like it. That's fine.
Yeah. My favorite in modern times that I can remember was, and it might be also because the Seahawks were in the Super Bowl and they won the Super Bowl, but was Bruno Mars and Red Hot Chili Peppers. I have watched that halftime show over and over again. I might go watch it again today because it is just Bruno Mars is amazing, but also his band is freaking awesome. But then when the Red Hot Chili Peppers come out and the way they collab together, it was so great. And Flea was not pretending to be plugged in. He specifically, but the performance was the rehearsal that was recorded. That's what was played live.
Oh, Decentraland. Wow, that's a name I haven't heard in a couple of years. So I have not been exploring Decentraland.
I don't know what that is.
So it's a Web3 crypto thing.
Ah,
It's
all
like
right.
Roblox for crypto.
All right. We appreciate you all hanging with us. It's that time. And we will be here next week. Well, we won't be in these locations. We will be at the Folk Alliance conference. We're going to try and pull it off live. Check your email, check social media. We'll be letting people know if we can pull it off. We will. From the Reverb Nation booth at Folk Alliance, we had, sort of some ideas of the man on the street type of vibe, pulling in some artists to chat with us. And of course, we want you there. But then the following week, that's the 20, was that the 20 reels?
20 TikTok and Reels ideas.
Yes, that one's going to be good. It's going to be good. So stay tuned, and we enjoy this time with all of you. And you know where to find Chris and I if you're interested in or have other questions. We're on all the socials. You can find us easy. And yeah.
All right. We'll see you from Montreal next week.
Yep. Take it easy.